welcome back to episode 2. Welcome back, Madeline. Welcome back, Momo. Welcome back, Arrington. It's great to have you with us. In episode 1, we talked about how in today's society, we can sometimes feel isolated. We can feel alone. We can feel like we really can't make a difference outside our scope, our friendships, our communities. And we asked, as kids, as teenagers, as adults, do we feel like we can make a difference in the world? And each one of us had a different thought, a different perspective. If you didn't get a chance to listen to episode 1, definitely go back and do so. But we left off with the question, what can I do? And how can I really make a difference in the world? And I think an even more important question, guys, that we address today is why? Why should I worry about the world when I have so many problems in my life right now? How can I fix the world? So before we get to and address the Kabbalists, which do speak about how we can make a difference in the world, just going to bring it up, throw a little question out of left field and say, why would we want to make a difference in the world? Does anybody want to chime in on that one? I have so much going on in my life. Why would I want to start to change the world?
Just off the top of my head, I would say, a lot of people's problems and issues seem to be some external force holding them back, right? Got to make rent, don't have enough money, don't have enough time. Like the younger generation right now, financially speaking, has to work more jobs per person just to keep up with what used to take like a part-time job, say in whatever, the 70s or something. So it feels like if we would improve the world, the standing, like just the way we operate, etc., we ourselves would eventually get to a place where we are not working so hard just to meet like the basic minimum standards. So yeah, it might take a while, but if we can improve the world, we can improve our own lives, our own level of happiness.
Yeah, I think also it's a responsibility for ourselves for 2 reasons. Number one, other people's actions affect us too, right? We want to be in a safe neighborhood, a safe environment. If our neighbor is leaking chemicals into their yard and it leaks into ours, that's a problem, right? If their noise, if they're throwing a party in their dorm room or whatever it is, right? And you need to study for your final the next day, that affects you, right? So your actions affect other people. And then number 2 also, I think, is there are people who need help, right? For basic things. I think there are people, and if we have the capacity to help them, we should, whether it's, basic food, shelter, whether it's basic necessities to help them survive and live as human beings. I think we have responsibility to do that if we can.
I think those are great and important points, Arrington. Thank you. Yeah, Madeline, go.
I was just going to say that selfishly, I will say that, I take care of the world because sometimes taking care of myself is not enough. And what I mean by that is I may not have the inspiration enough to get out of an anxiety attack, but I will if I know that doing so, or getting over my fears, or getting over something I know is not serving me and the world around me, let alone the bigger world, my friends, my family, my society. If I can't find the power to do it for myself, at least I know I'm doing it for somebody else. And that's very selfish, but at the end of the day, it helps other people.
That's really powerful. And also, you just got me to think of something else, is how many times have I personally, or have you been in a situation where you've been down and it's been hard, and then you decided, I'm not going to like dwell in this bad. I'm just going to text somebody and make them happier. I'm going to go out and get somebody a coffee, or I'm going to like do something positive for somebody else. And that completely like uplifts our mood in 1 second. It's like not being focused or dwelling on the problem and saying, you know what, how can I be a light to somebody else? And immediately that cheers us up. And it's kind of, I guess, selfish in a way. And the answer that the Kabbalists give, it's beautiful. It's almost like a combination of all the things you guys said without even me, saying it or sharing it with you. The Kabbalists explain that it doesn't require, although it's positive, it doesn't require us to make a ground changing, a world, like a world renowned invention that changes the world. the Kabbalists explain what's the most important thing to contribute to our world being better is each one of us being better today. You think to yourself, oh, I'm in my room. What does it matter if I'm watching Netflix or doing homework? What does it matter if I'm texting my friends gossip, or if I'm texting my friends how I want to help, bring this new kid and make them, more accepted in this school? What does it matter? It's just me. I'm going to feel bad if I do one, but it's okay. The Kabbalists explain it's bigger than that. Our energy and our frequency influences the world. Just like if you take a piece of plastic and you just throw it in the ocean. Science has now proven that when you throw that piece of plastic into the ocean, the fish eat it, then eventually the fish get caught, you eat the fish, and you eventually eat the plastic that you threw in the ocean. Your actions, they make a difference. And I think that's super important for us to remember when we're at home alone, when we think our actions don't influence anybody. When you decide, okay, today I'm going to be proactive. Today, when I get down thoughts, I'm going to go out and text somebody and be happy. Today, when I make somebody else smile. Today, when I decide not to yell at my mom or, push my brother or fight with my brother. I was going to say push my brother down the stairs. It's a little intense, but like push my brother or fight with my brother. I'm not going to do that because I know that that energy has a ripple effect, and eventually the world will feel it. But more importantly, I'll feel it. And I just want to ask how that makes you guys feel as listeners. Like, does it put pressure? Does it make you inspired that you can, make a difference in the world by deciding not to fight with your brother or to be respectful to your parents or whatever it may be? Does that make you inspired, or is it like, oh my God, more responsibility?
Kind of both. As somebody who has a consistent issue with trying to not take on more responsibility and trying to avoid responsibility at like all costs, I find that like my initial instinct is to be afraid, like, oh my God, the entire world now seems to rest on my shoulders after what you just said. But at the same time, I'm also kind of inspired and empowered in a way, because it's like, whoa, look, I can affect the entire world. Like it's funny because whatever it was, like 2 weeks ago, I heard someone else explaining to actually like kids this exact concept of how the world is created. And he did it like this. He said, imagine like you see a hand, right? But imagine like you couldn't see like this, right? If you saw fingers like this, let's say, they look very disconnected, right? Imagine you just saw these 4 clips right here. But as soon as you like zoom out and you see the whole picture, you see it's all connected. And you zoom out further, you see it's connected even further, like that. And so he was basically showing them that like we might not look connected as people, but if you were to like zoom your view out and see the entire world, you'd see like society moves in waves, or like people are affected by other people. Like we're all just this one giant ball of connections. In the same way that like if you took like 19 phones and you placed them all over the world, but they were all on one call, they would look very separate, but they're literally connected to each other. And so that concept, I've already been like mulling it over in my head, and I thought, wow, that's a very cool concept on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for everyone. I have not been doing my share in
right.
In
Imagine I was one of the
place.
19 phones, and I'm like saying bad words or talking gossip on the phone. Now everybody's hearing it.
Yeah, so stuff like that. I think it's just it's a concept that takes a second to get used to. Like you really have to like break that down in your head and like go over it and really understand what that means. But I think once you learn the concept, you start to see it more. And once you see it more, you start to be like, whoa, okay, there is actually something to be done here, right? Like this is basically like walking into your room with bare feet and you feel crumbs under your feet, right? You're like, okay, I got to sweep. I got to do something. This isn't like how things are supposed to be. This feels wrong. And like the more you get into it, the better it is. So yes, it is responsibility, but along with responsibility comes like ability. It's you're able to do something by taking on the responsibility, and therefore able to help people or help yourself, help your family, etc.
But Momo, you know what? I'll take it a step further, because all that you said, I feel you. I completely relate to it in feeling the pressure and feeling like you have to take a second and really process and mull over this idea. But then I'm met by fear, because a lot of the times the things that we do that are not proactive, right? The things that we're asking our listeners to move away from are the things that make them a part of their group. I know for myself, I grew up in Latin America. Gossip is a religion over there. So if you don't partake, you are the outsider. And I know growing up in the center, maybe you guys shared this experience. I felt like I was a fish out of water the second I decided not to partake in those conversations or to try to switch them into something positive. I was the outsider. But this knowledge, once it percolates in your minds as real wisdom, right, is the fuel that you use to then take the actions that we'll talk about in the next episode. But consciousness wise, or like, where do you come from it? Where do you get the strength? Is knowing that you're not just doing it for yourself. Your friends might look at you a little weird at the beginning, but believe me, you'll be the coolest person ever when 5 years from now, you're not in a fight with everybody around you because you gossiped, or you said something negative on social media, or you blocked them, or you Snapchatted them something nasty. Like, none of that is going to be in your movie. Why? Because you chose to be proactive for you and for the world.
You know what's crazy? Somebody just told me a quote this weekend. They're like, someone once asked, like a very wise spiritual leader, what would you do if you were at a bar and and somebody starts like, getting aggressive and fighting with you? How would you handle that situation? He said, I wouldn't have gone to the bar in the first place. Right.
Wow.
Meaning, like, he knows you set yourself up for failure. It might not look like it immediately. Right. Most people would think once they're already at the bar, they go, oh man, what did I do to start this fight with this guy? And but they have to go back even further. Like, where was my cause for this entire situation as I showed up to here? Right. So it's like you just said, 5 years later, we're not in all these problems. Meaning, if I start now, I might not see the effects immediately, but down the line, right? You ever see the thing? It's like two lines going in the same direction, but if you change even 1 degree, yeah, it might slowly go, but the further away, the further along you go, they're such in different places. So it really only takes a tiny shift at a time as you go, and you can lead yourself to far better places, far more, power, responsibility, understanding. Honestly, blessings come from it, because when you're the person doing that work, right, and helping to change the world, you've taken on that responsibility. Like the story with the kid earlier who invented the solar like water cleaner. Other people came to him and said, whoa, we really like your idea. We want to be a part of this. How can we make more? How can we support you? Right. So it's not like you have to do all the work once you've made the shift. It's you just have to make the shift. Don't go back. Right. Stay strong. And eventually people will see your new path and be like, yo, I want to be a part of that path, not this one that we were on before, because this one doesn't look so nice. But that one, right, you're watching a person go. As an example, you're going, I want to follow that guy, right, or that girl. And so you just like, people will naturally come to you to help you and support you, but your inclination will be fear, because that's the test that you have to go through to truly get to anywhere worth anything. Is take the risk, overcome the fear, step up to the challenge. And like that, you'll find once you've gone through it, literally, like, miracles happen around you and things start to change in inexplicable ways. Like, you can't even explain how this person showed up to help you, and the exact timing that this person showed up with. They happen to have the skill you need for this project, or da. Like, I've seen it happen so many times, and it's incredible. And I'm sure you guys have too, in different places in life, but it's all about just taking that initial shift.
I definitely think that's a lot of wisdom for our viewers and for our listeners right now, because that's between both of you. Like, oh my God, it's a lot of responsibility. But Madeline, you were like, no, it's not a lot of responsibility. That's actually what's going to inspire you to do something different today, so that I don't end up in 5 years somewhere that I don't really want to be. And I think that's the initial, as we get into it and we get into the nitty gritty of it, like, okay, I decided, Madeline, I heard this Kabbalah, I heard this podcast, I heard this class, and now I'm deciding that I'm not going to talk gossip with my friends. What's going to happen for the first 3, 4, 5, 6 days, 2 weeks? You're going to feel like an outsider, and you're going to say, wait, do I really want to make a difference? Do I really want to say I'm going to be the leader of people that have fun things to talk about, as opposed to talking about negative things about other people? And then slowly see about how your group gets created. But I think the trick is now using what we're talking about today as a tool to say, it's not only about me in 5 years living in a different reality, it's every choice that I make brings light into the world. Every choice that I make is making our world a better place, even though it's really literally only making yours. And Rav Ashlag, the founder of the Kabbalah Center in 1922, he wrote many, many articles about world peace and about how to bring peace to the world. And about society in general and what's the nature of humanity and the nature of man. And in one of his books, he wrote something that I think is a beautiful visual. He says, what we're trying to do globally with our actions is to take all the people in the energy that's created. You talk positively about somebody, you create a positive light force. You talk negatively about someone, you feel like dirty after, you're like, why did I just do that? Why did I need to do that? These two energies that are created collectively, there's a big scale of the world. And what we're asking ourselves is, what does our world look like energetically right now? On the scale, there are these kids that are creating things that are, stopping pollution, but at the same time, there are people that are, doing really dark and negative things in the world. But if you look at the world, just pause for a second. Don't really pause, but pause for a second in your mind. Think, where is the scale of the world? And what Rav Ashlag explains is that you don't need it to be 100% good to 0% negative to allow the world to feel the shift of world peace, of bringing the world to a better place, of removing pain, suffering, and death. It doesn't require 100% good actions and 0% bad. It just requires 50.00001% for good. And then once that shifts, the whole world changes. And Kabbalah actually speaks about what the world will look like when this shift happens. But how powerful is that? To think that if my next action right now might tip the balance of the world. And if you don't take that, we might remain in this kind of difficult spot. So it's not about, again, starting a revolution or creating a product that changes the world. Although if you do that, I think it will add to the collective benefit in a very positive way. But even today, when I turn off this talk, this podcast, this discussion, and I say to myself, okay, you know what? I'm inspired. I'm going to do one thing better. You're adding positive energy to that scale, and you're assisting the world, and you don't know that you might be the one that shifts it to all positive, which I think is super inspiring. Super inspiring.
I think what's so amazing about that is it can even be the smallest action, because that's all it takes to tip the scale, right? Whether it's saying hi to a friend, checking in on a friend, like you said, welcoming in that new person who doesn't know anyone. And in high school, you never know what someone's going through, right? So small things like that can make really big differences in their lives.
That's huge. I think it was important that you reminded all of us that it's not like I have to take this massive action. I have to go help this old lady across the street. It's literally just a smile at someone. Mm-hmm. Is really powerful. But the beautiful part of this, and I'll just share this very briefly, is that the Kabbalists explain, what are we doing this for? Why are we doing this? Is because when that scale does tip, there's going to be a moment in time where all of the negativity, all of the forces of the opponent, we spoke about the opponent in another talk, that voice that gets you, in your head, tells you to do really negative things when there's some positive things that can be done. That force is going to be lifted from the world. And like Momo said, like, we all look separate right now, but once that force is gone, we're all like one family. And you'll realize how, when you threw that trash on the street, you'll realize how that wasn't just trash on the street, that made a difference in the world. And at the same time, when you smile at someone, you'll realize how you literally uplifted their entire world. Everything will be revealed to us. But that's at the Kabbalah Center. That's really what we're trying to do. I think most of Arrington, Momo, myself, Madeline, in some way, we grew up studying Kabbalah. So this was in our mind, like, why are we studying Kabbalah? Because the goal of the Kabbalah Center is to ultimately remove pain, suffering, separation, arguments, negativity, pollution, disease from the world. But how do we do that? How does one do that? It's too big of a task. Not like we're speaking about right now. Smiling at someone does that. Sharing with someone does that. Being kind to your parents, respecting them does that. Instead of, picking on your younger brother, leading them and showing them the way, that does that. We might think that it's small, but it's like the sesame seed on the scale. It makes a huge difference. But that's what we're aiming for. We're trying to remove that from the world, the negativity, the suffering, the death, and we all have the power to do that. So I think that's a lot of responsibility, but at the same time, it's a lot of it's fun. It's fun to know that my energy that I send out into the world isn't going into the ether. It's not like I'm here in my room alone. I'm actually doing a lot with every decision that I make. So that is, but it's also a lot to ask. So what we're gonna do is now we've dedicated a whole episode to talk about things that I, David, myself, Arrington, Momo, Madeline, things that we do to keep this in our mind, so that we end up being the best versions of ourselves for ourselves and for the world. So I hope that in a way shifted your perspective of, I feel small, I feel like I can't, I feel like I'm in my room, I feel like I can't make a difference. What if I decide to, leave the cool crew that's talking gossip and start a new crew that's not? What will happen? I think throughout this episode, we really got some of those answers, and hopefully left you with some inspiration that you can make a difference. But again, it's a tall task to order. It's a tall task to ask for. So that's why we have episode 3. Don't miss it, where we all share our tools, our tips for really being the best versions of ourselves, which creates, hopefully for all of us collectively, the best world. So thank you, Madeline, for your wisdom. Thank you, Momo. Thank you, Arrington, for everything. It was great. And we'll see you all, including our viewers, in episode 3. Bye for now.